It's not at all important who I am. What's important is who you are. Because you are in a position of tremendous power to either create a sustainable future or to create a future of scarcity and human suffering. I talk a lot at 2-year schools and at 4-year schools, and I will tell you that the faculty at 4-year colleges are running around trying to get grants. And there's a tremendous amount of pressure for them to do that and to do this publish or perish thing that they have. We are the ones that can take scholarship and put it into action. So I'm really glad to be here. And really, my main job is teaching at a community college for 28 years. And then all of those other things were just things that came out of my teaching, my discussions with my students, my going to conferences and saying, where's the gap in our society of what we could be doing as a species on this planet and what we're not doing? And I come from a rich tradition of that. I have a mother who, at the dinner table, it went like this. You know, there is no food program for poor pregnant women and children in the Detroit area. This doesn't make any sense. So let's go out and find somebody who will donate warehouses. Let's find somebody who will donate trucks. Somebody who will donate that extra food that's not being utilized and set up a program, and she did. So it's a way of thinking about who we are in the world. To look at the gaps. What could, should our society be doing that it's not doing, and let's go do it. And making that part of the educational experience for ourselves and our continuous improvement and for our students. So we're going to talk about how to create a better future, a more sustainable future, and opportunities and resources for you, because you are the ones who are important today and in the coming months and years with this. So those are all the different things I do so well. So here are the 4 things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what is this sustainability stuff, and what is education for sustainability. What are our sustainability challenges, and what are the solutions? I promise I will not leave you depressed, but instead excited. What are the national trends that are already occurring, and what are the resources that we have for you? Sustainable development, this is the most commonly used definition. It was developed in consultation with over 1 million people in 100 countries through the United Nations Brundtland Commission. It is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. I want you to notice something. There's nothing in this definition about saving the planet. The planet is going to be fine. Let it sink in. The planet's going to be fine. It's just a question of which species are going to be living on the planet. So this is really about human beings and other species that we impact on the planet. Business calls this the triple bottom line. And the business sector is ahead of the higher ed sector in sustainability. The triple bottom line is about simultaneously creating healthy environments or ecosystems, healthy communities, and healthy economies. And we used to think in the national and international economic development community that if you did one, it had to be at the cost of another. That if you're going to build strong economies, you just couldn't do what you needed to do for the environment, or you just couldn't do what you needed to do for communities to make them healthier. But there's been this big aha, as we've seen examples of it working, as we've done the analyses in the national and international communities, that by being thoughtful, we can create the triple bottom line simultaneously. Also, let me clarify about this economy piece. There is no such thing as pure capitalism in the world. And people have won Nobel Prizes showing that pure capitalism doesn't work, and that economies do need to be modified to be healthy. One of the assumptions of capitalism is that we have full access to all information. No, we don't. A second assumption is that when people have full access to information, they make decisions in their best interests. Well, they don't. Kahneman and Tversky have shown that over and over again, that the way you frame a situation will impact how people decide about it, even though the facts are the same. So all of the economies of the world are modified economies. And we can modify them in such a way that we can create the triple bottom line. And right now we do have lots of modifications going on to our economies that don't make sense in terms of sustainability. Like, here are the subsidies for fossil fuels in our country, and here are the subsidies for renewable energies. That's a modification that doesn't make sense. And those subsidies for fossil fuels do not translate into lower costs for us. Here's another one. China's spending more money on its renewable energies program than we are. Here's another one. You've got a boiler that pollutes. It produces asthma, respiratory illnesses for kids and for senior citizens, and it can't be replaced because of the way the tax laws are written. Even though it would be cost-effective for the company to do so, the strange tax laws make that cost-effectiveness disappear. So we need to change some of our policies. In fact, there's only a couple things we need to do to create a sustainable future, and I'll talk about those in a minute. The United Nations declared a decade of education for sustainable development, and all around the world, countries have been using that to catalyze initiatives. Now that we know what sustainability is, it's not just the green stuff. Oh, and let me back up for a second. I want to put this in other words. See that social well-being piece? Let me give you the Democratic and the Republican version of this so that you can understand the frame. In the Democratic version, social well-being is about social justice. It's about reducing human suffering, making sure people do have opportunities to learn and to make a living for themselves that's a livable wage. Well, you all know what you might think social justice is. It probably fits this. Those of you who are Republicans in the audience, social well-being is about preparing people to participate in democracy. And what does it take for people to be able to participate in democracy? Which is so essential, right, to our country being healthy. They need to not be hungry. They need to know where they're going to sleep tonight and tomorrow night and the next night. They need to have access to quality education. They need to not be poisoned in their neighborhoods because of toxins that are being dumped nearby, as so it goes on with so many poor communities around this country. Oh my goodness, a lot of the same things that might fit into the Democrats' version of social justice. So let's stop worrying about which party we're in and get to creating the triple bottom line. Education for a sustainable society, what is it? Oh, I'll move my cup if it's in the way, but I did want to point out that you guys are using bottled water here? And do you know that bottled water is not only incredibly energy intensive and environmentally damaging, but it's also not tested for safety? And that you have a higher chance of drinking safe water if you take what's out of the tap? My girlfriend drank bottled water her whole pregnancy and then found out that the company had arsenic in the water because there was no regulations to test it for safety. So, you know, you got budget issues, stop buying that bottled water. So what's education for a sustainable society? Now, this is the definition that came out of the World Summit. And by the way, creating a sustainable future is about going way beyond the low-hanging fruit. Okay, that bottled water is just a low-hanging fruit issue. So this definition came out of the World Summit. It enables people to develop the knowledge, values, and skills to participate in decisions, notice the emphasis on decisions, that will improve the quality of life now without damaging the planet for the future. Also notice the emphasis on improving quality of life. This is not about us being martyrs. It is about us cutting out the waste and producing higher quality of life for ourselves and others. So let me talk about this decisions piece for a minute. Now, I've been in higher ed for over 30 years. My husband's been teaching for 41 years. And so we have seen over the last few decades, as you have, an emphasis on critical thinking, right? Critical thinking, that's the core of gen ed, what we need to do, and turn out critical thinkers. Have you ever sat in a dinner party and sitting next to you is somebody who's a really good critical thinker, and they go on and on and on and on about what's wrong with the world and what needs to be fixed, and you just know they're not going to do anything? And it's like painful, isn't it? Sitting and listening to them pontificate. I call them armchair pontificators. And I would argue that we have been graduating way too many armchair pontificators. Please let's not graduate one more, because if I have to sit next to one of them at one more dinner party. And also because the world needs more than armchair pontificators. We need people who can effectively look at what needs to change in our society and then go out and make those changes. So Bloom's taxonomy, while I appreciate it, needs to be extended to another layer, which is an effective doer, an effective change agent. And yeah, I know a lot of us went into higher ed because we like being armchair pontificators. I know that. So this is about us getting thoughtful about who we are in the classroom and in the world, and being willing to extend ourselves too, because what we do models for others. It's about creating effective doers who can make decisions to improve quality of life now without damaging the planet for the future. And oh, by the way, this quality of life thing, do you know what psychology research says? After you can pay your basic bills, not the flat screen TV bill, but the basic bills, what the #1 indicator is of quality of life, of happiness in life? Any guesses? It's the quality of your personal relationships. The quality of your personal relationships. So let me ask you a question. How many of you had to take a course along the way in how to build healthy relationships? Would you raise your hand? I've got one. Okay. Oh, 2. How many of you had to take algebra? Would you raise your hand? Now, math teachers don't get mad at me. I've been teaching applied math too for like 12 years, so I'm one of you. But when's the last time you used the quadratic equation? When's the last time you used building healthy relationships? There's a whole lot of stuff we know about how to build healthy relationships. How to build a healthy self-concept, how to do conflict resolution. In the K-12 schools, what they're getting is anti-bullying, the anti-extreme programs. When are we going to start to look at our Gen Ed core as a place where we make sure, and you know that employers have been asking for years in all of these surveys we do, make sure they can work in teams. Make sure they can work in teams. So what do a lot of us do? We throw them into teams without giving them any training about how to work effectively in a team. How to resolve conflict, how to handle difficult emotional issues, how to deal with tensions in the group, how to have a recorder, a timekeeper, a task keeper so that the different skills of a group are actually used. How many of you teach group skills as you throw them into groups? Oh my, there's a topic for professional development. Got 6 people raising their hand. So sustainability is about that too. Because if I'm in a society where people don't know how to build healthy interpersonal relationships and resolve conflicts, then these big unhealthy egos get in the way of building a sustainable future. And they're just trying to be accepted. So if we can get at those issues. Now, there's only 2 things we really need to do to create a sustainable future. And it's right here in these circles. This comes from the National Science Digital Library we put together. On the center there's a whole bunch of other things in there. In the center are all the things we do in higher ed. So we give them knowledge and skills and other things too. But there's only 2 things we have to do with that. And those are in red. Number 1, we have to change our private choices and our behaviors. How many of you have gone to myfootprint.org? myfootprint.org, and you took the test. Okay, I got about 20 of you. If all you do at this college is every single professor makes their students go to myfootprint.org and then do an exercise, an assignment that takes into account those results, you will have transformed this college, your students, your community, and you'll be helping to move towards a sustainable future. Myfootprint.org, it was like the #1 website. It got awards for it. It actually blew out their server after they got the awards. They had to put a new one up. And what you will find is that if everybody on the planet lives like we do in the United States, we will need 4 to 6 planets of resources. And we only have 1. You will find that we are already exceeding the carrying capacity of the planet with our resource consumption. And that we're just really wasteful in the United States. We use twice as much energy per person as somebody in France or England. We use twice as many resources per unit of production as somebody in Japan. So it's not that we need that to maintain our quality of life. We're just used to wasting things because we grew up in this, endless resources, and the earth can absorb all the toxins. So we need to make some choices, like don't drink bottled water. Okay, the other thing that you could do is we have to change the regulations. We just have to change some policies. Institutionally, you've already done some of that. Some regulations locally, state and nationally, and internationally. We're working on those too. If you do those 2 things, private behaviors and policies and regulations, we will create sustainable communities and sustainable economies. Now, why is this system, why is it on the outside? Because in the other one, it was just part of the triple bottom line. The triple bottom line, in a way, is kind of false. Because with every breath you take, with every drink of water, with every piece of food, You are receiving life-sustaining gifts from the ecosystem. And it is not fully priced into our economic system. And we have to be aware that it is the context within which we do everything. That we are highly interdependent with nature. We're a part of nature. And this thing we grew up with, which may have made sense at the time, you know, when the pioneers came over, we could have a whole discussion about that, but we won't. And they had endless frontiers, and their job was to conquer nature. Remember that phrase, man conquers nature? Well, that's not going to work for us as a population on this planet now. What we have to do is recognize our interdependencies with nature and with each other. And we have this value in this country of rugged individualism, of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and there is real importance to being assertive and to being self-motivated and to having healthy self-concepts and the skills of independent learning so we can go after our goals. All of that is important, but it also needs to be balanced by the facts of how interdependent we are with each other and how we need to create these solutions together. Okay, so those are the things we have to do. Why is this environmental piece of the triple bottom line such a high priority? Well, because half the world's rivers are going dry or badly polluted, and if you think energy's an issue, water's worse. You just haven't seen it yet. You should see all the colleges and universities I go to, and they're talking about taking our Great Lakes water. 11 of the world's 15 major fishing areas, 69% of the world's major fish species are in decline. You just have fish collapses going on all over the world. And then there's climate change. How many of you think that climate change is actually going on right now and that it is human-induced, that there are things we're doing that are exacerbating this climate change? Raise your hand, would you? Would you please look around the room? Raise your hand high, would you? Okay, so 5 years ago I would go to audiences, and I've been doing this for 30 years, right? So 5 years ago I'd go around, they'd still, like only a handful would be raising their hand, because this really weird thing happened in the United States where the media kept presenting it as a 50-50 argument, even when the science showed that it wasn't. So we've known for quite a long time, actually, with scientific consensus pretty much, all the peer-reviewed published journals talking about the human choices that are creating climate change. So if you don't know that yet, that's okay, but go read the science, okay? It's not okay to stay in that state of misinformation. Go read the science. And I don't think I have time to do this. How many of you know how the greenhouse effect works? Oh, okay, so just really quickly, so if you get into your car and it's cold outside and you've got dark upholstery, you're experiencing the greenhouse effect, climate change, because the sun's rays come through the glass and they hit the dark upholstery and they turn from shorter wavelength light radiation into longer wavelength heat radiation. And as that longer wavelength tries to go back out the car, the glass reflects longer wavelengths, so you get the heat in the car, and that's why it's warmer in the car than it is outside. That's how solar greenhouses work and solar collectors, etc. And so now think of the glass on your car as greenhouse gases. So every time you burn fossil fuels, you are emitting into, and every time you eat a hamburger, you are actually part of a process that's emitting into the atmosphere these greenhouse gases. And those greenhouse gases act like a pane of glass. It's a very fast description, but it gets the gist of it. So what's happening because of climate change? We are already seeing disruption of the food chain. So birds go to look for their food's not there either because it hatched a month ago or it just doesn't hatch anymore because of the impacts of climate change. The head of the National Academy of Sciences said that what you saw with Katrina is typical of the more extreme weather events that we're going to see, and the international insurance companies are already saying that. They are paying out in 1 year damages from severe weather events that they used to have to pay out in over 10 years. And if you are a business and you don't have a climate change plan of how you're going to reduce climate change, then they either will not insure you or they will charge you higher interest, higher premiums. Disruption of ecosystems in the food chain, including water supplies, I talked about that. I live outside of Detroit, and I have to be in a screened-in porch now. I like being outside a lot. You know why? Because we have West Nile. West Nile is a subtropical disease. It doesn't belong in Detroit. But it's there because it can survive now with temperature changes where it couldn't before. I have friends that are down in Panama helping a whole community move their whole community for two reasons. One, it's going underwater, so they have to. And the second reason is they have malaria now, where they didn't before, because of climate change. And then there's the submersion of the land masses. the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is 2,000 scientists from all around the world, the ones who won the Nobel Prize. Well, anyway, they've talked about the sea level rise, and then the estimates keep going up because we keep losing chunks of the ice masses on the pole and other places, and so now it doesn't, to some extent it doesn't matter whether it's 10 feet or 80 feet. The point is that 50% of the world's population lives on the coasts, and that we're going to have to relocate them. And it would be great for colleges around the country to start to do design charrettes about relocation efforts and how can we relocate into more sustainably designed communities, because we can't afford to do again what we did with Katrina. That's shameful. So climate change is outside of the normal variability of the climate, and we are the first generation, the students we're teaching today, capable of determining the habitability of this planet for humans and other species. If you haven't read E.O. Wilson's stuff, he's out of Harvard, he's talking about the species extinction rate being so much higher than the normal background rate because of human choices that we're making. I'm not even going to go into that today except to mention it. The point is the decisions of this generation are crucial. And as I said at the Association of American Colleges and Universities, to a ballroom that was filled with people from 1,000 liberal arts colleges, and I thought that they were going to hang me, but I said, you just can't teach the same old gen ed. And do you know that gen ed wasn't always what it is now with its distribution requirements? Do you know that that's a model that we adopted from the German and the European in just a few decades ago, and that before that it was an integrated interdisciplinary core? And I know it boggles the mind to think about creating that again, but you could at least start to do pieces of it, and I think you do have some pieces here, because the gen ed we've been teaching doesn't make sense anymore for what these students need in this life today. And we can do lots of adaptations to the gen ed that we have, and a lot of colleges have, that turn out students who have the skills and the willingness to engage in the solutions to our sustainability problems, and where the campus is a living lab of experimentation in this. I think you're moving in that direction. So, our human presence has grown on a global scale that now all of our ecosystems are in danger and decline, according to the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment and a lot of other published works. We have this unprecedented growth in our resource consumption, and the decisions we make in this generation is going to create more scarcity and suffering, or a future of greater abundance, sustainable abundance, and higher quality of life. Do you know that in the first grade curriculum they teach scarcity, but they don't teach opportunities for sustainable abundance? What is that about? So imagine putting these posters up all over campus. You'll really depress your students. But imagine if on the right-hand side of this poster is something that says, and we can do something about it. And then your campus website for sustainability that has lots of things that people can do in their homes, in their assignments and classes, in their student life. You start to create a culture on campus. Because much of the public doesn't even know we're exceeding the carrying capacity of the planet. They also don't know that solutions exist. I do have colleges, we all have colleges, it's not like I own them or anything. We have these colleges where they teach students about the problems, and the students get so depressed and overwhelmed. You can see it when you go on campus. They're kind of like this. I just came from one. It looked like the beginning of the Pleasantville movie where nothing was in color, everything was drab. We got to make sure that our students and the public know about the solutions too, because we can reduce human suffering, improve quality of life, reduce environmental degradation and social ills now while building stronger economies. The solutions exist, but what we need is a rapid mind shift. And education to action is the key. Please, not education to armchair pontification. So this is kind of an overview of that we're moving from a heat, beat, treat, produce toxins at the end of product life cycles, eat the seed corn of nature, don't worry about species extinction, we're all independent, materialism, the one with the most toys wins kind of a culture, to a more sustainably abundant culture. There are inaccurate beliefs we've all grown up with, like the earth can assimilate all our waste. We all grew up with that. And so you got to catch yourself so that we don't still come out of those inaccurate beliefs and move to an updated worldview of sustainability. Now, if you look at all of the disciplines, they all have a unique and important contribution to make to this. I know you have that Garbage Land as your book. I want you to consider for a book for future years, Plan B, Mobilizing to Save Civilization. It's actually Plan B 3.0, but it doesn't matter, it's just the third version. Lester Brown started the World Watch Institute. It is free and downloadable for your students at earth-policy.org, and it will tell you in that book, can we meet all of our needs with renewable energies and energy conservation? Yes, we can. Can we reduce poverty while meeting our environmental challenges? Yes, we can. And so the key outcome of an emphasis on sustainability and sustainability education is that students, staff, and community members know how to and choose to be more environmentally, socially, and economically responsible. Where? In their personal lives, in their careers, as a community member, and in their participation in government. Or simply in policies and behaviors. In policies and behaviors. So I thought I'd just throw out some things that you can do at home that'll save you some money and that'll also help you be more socially and environmentally responsible. So you can go to these websites. You're going to have this PowerPoint. It's going to be yours now. It'll be posted somewhere and somebody will tell you where it is. Caulking and weather stripping always pays for itself in under a year. Unplug the TV, put it on a power strip, unplug all of those things at the end, turn the power strip off because instant on, you're still consuming energy. Go clean the coils on your refrigerator and make sure it's not stuffed against the wall with a bunch of stuff stuffed around it. It needs free airflow. It will save you money. Turn down the hot water tank, and here's how you do that. You go down to the basement and turn it down only to 120, not below that. You turn it down just a little bit and you don't say anything for a few days. Then you turn it down a little more and you don't say anything. And then eventually somebody will say, something's wrong with the hot water, and you say, I'll go look into it, and then don't do anything. And then they'll get used to it. Or you could actually tell them, we had a Wayne State University professor, he sat down with his family with the bills, he says, look at how much money we're spending on our utility bills. You know, if we didn't spend it on that, we could spend it on other things, and their bills dropped by 50%. 50%. I noticed your landscaping plan. Are you doing permaculture? If you turn to those architects and say, I want a permaculture plan, you know what permaculture is? Low maintenance, low energy, and partially edible landscaping. I had it around my lab. It was so great. You know, just going from the car to the lab, I could eat. Do you know that Carleton College used its working capital to buy a utility-sized wind generator because they found the return on investment from that was just as high as if they put it in mutual funds? Do you know that Pennsylvania colleges and universities were the #1 purchasers of wind power because they joined together as a consortium? Do you know that Los Angeles Community College is going 100% renewables? They are purchasing enough solar energy so that they will be totally renewables. And not only are they doing that, they're doing it cost effectively. And they have a whole thing that they can show you about how they're doing it. You know, NACUBO, the National Association of College and University Business Officers, has published a book called The Business Case for Renewables. So when you do your facilities work, and by the way, all of your buildings, your new buildings, are green buildings. One's going for certification and LEED, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. But all your new buildings are green, which is good, because if you built a new building right now and it didn't have green components, you would be embarrassed quickly, if not immediately. So you're doing good things, but you can do even more. And that's exciting, because lots of times it's dollar savings, and lots of times it's getting you off of volatile energy prices that are going to throw your budgets into haywire. So imagine all of us engaged as effective change agents in our sustainability challenges. And this is an exciting audience to talk to because you have a lot of new faculty. Oakland Community College, we have so many faculty who have been there a really, really, really long time, and they do what they do in the classroom, and they don't really have the energy to change it. Some of them are very good teachers, but they have this inertia factor going on. So I would suggest, because I've heard what your pay scale is, and I know what our pay scale is at OCC too, these are cush jobs. I mean, come on, they are, right? If you think you have a cush job as a faculty person, clap. Oh, come on, you know that it is, right? And staff people, we all know how much you do and how incredibly valuable you are to this institution. And all of us, every single one of us in this audience have a unique and important role to play in helping to create a sustainable future. We won't get there by us not engaging. The biggest danger is the do-nothing danger. That's the biggest danger. That's a destructive action. You think it's a non-action, but it's not. It's a choice to do nothing. And at this point, that's a destructive choice. So we have to know that our daily decisions affect the quality of life of people around the globe. And it's important to keep in mind that as we do even our little daily things. So let me show you something. See, is this working? You see this coat I'm wearing? So I like this coat because for a lot of reasons. But I also like it because the buttons come from a women's co-op in a village in Africa. And the woman who makes these coats, the way that she schedules her work, she gets a phone call from the village or an email or whatever they do. We're out of money in the village. We'd like to sell you more buttons. And then she makes more coats. So now every time I go into a store, every time, I ask the people, are the people who make these clothes, are they paid a fair wage or are they in sweatshops? And is your cotton organic? Because cotton that's not organic is so heavily filled with pesticides, it's harmful to the workers and to the water and to lots of things. And they look at me like I'm a little nutty, but then you know what they do? Because they can see that I can buy stuff. They go find out. They make phone calls. They send emails. I got one who found out from people in India, yes, here's the policies that they use with the, I said, so you gotta put that label on your clothes, and then I bought the outfit. You can do that. Now, higher ed in general can do it because we have 4,000 colleges and universities. When I go and speak internationally, Germany's got 300, Costa Rica's got 30, we've got 4,000. And we have seen suppliers change their product line because higher ed is asking for more socially and environmentally responsible products. So all of you in here who put in purchase orders for anything, think about the social and environmental implications of that. Tia Kreff, I'm on the phone with Tia Kreff like every month now. We're talking about how socially and environmentally responsible are you really? And you say that you're against supporting companies that are sponsoring genocide in Sudan, but meanwhile you've been talking to them for a few years and you haven't said yet that you're going to do a shareholder resolution. Come on. So we're nurturing that too. And by the way, my money's been in socially and environmentally responsible investments for decades, and my returns are just as good as people who think that they have to support pollution and human suffering and torture through their investments. So look into that too, and if you want more information, that's that coopamerica.org. It tells you fun things that you can do as an individual and as a teacher as you model. How many of you know about the tomato boycott of Taco Bell? Do you know about Taco Bell? It's at coopamerica.org. It's really easy to find out about it. So tomato farmers weren't being paid a livable wage. And my kids, I'm just looking at the time, my kids love Taco Bell. So for like a number of months, I wouldn't take them. Oh God, the complaints that I got. But you know what? We won that boycott. And now it costs 5 cents more for a tostada or whatever you order at Taco Bell, just 5 cents more. But the tomato farmers are getting a livable wage now. And it went through the whole fast food industry. The power we have that we're not using that bring about a more sustainable future. Also, your students, talk about us having the power. Your students have tremendous power because they are the culture makers. And I realized that because we called MTV and said, you know, we got this Pimp My Car show, and the last show you put on putting a hot tub into the van, and I'm just not sure this is good modeling of what we need for a sustainable future, and I'd really like you to clean this up. Can you clean this up? And they said to us, go do a survey of our viewers and show us they're interested, and then we'll do the programming. So we started to work on this survey like we don't have enough to do. There's 48 national youth organizations who have joined together to do something called Energy Action or Campus Climate Challenge. This fall they're doing Power Vote, and they called MTV and said the same thing, and MTV said, okay. So they created Ending the Addiction to Oil, Breaking the Addiction to Oil Challenge, and I ended up being a judge. I became immediately cool to all the kids in my neighborhood. We have our hands on the youth. Imagine, now there's a guy at MTV who gets this. So if you go to thinkmtv.com, there's a site where you can start a classroom project around anything to do with sustainability. You can post it and invite other campuses to join in. And you can start a national initiative that will shift our society. You want to hear an example of one that happened? Some students out in Oregon decided that they weren't going to buy any more gym shoes from Nike because Nike was using sweatshops, slave labor conditions. And they went to Nike and told them. And Nike said, we don't own those companies, those are just our suppliers. And the college students said, we don't care. Go clean up your suppliers. We're not going to buy more gym shoes until you do. And I got the story from the sustainability director at Nike. Nike then went and put in this whole system of doing spot checks on all of their suppliers, having a system of codes of conduct to get rid of sweatshops. And they're still not at 100%, but they're way, way, way better, and the kids are buying the shoes again. Reebok looked at it. This is posted as a case study on the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Imagine the implications for a psychology class looking at this story, for a sociology class looking at this story, for an economics class, for a business class, for an English class writing about it. I mean, there's so much that you can do with these sustainability materials. So think about starting some things and putting them up on Think MTV. If you don't want to use MTV, USA Today has a website called Voices where students can post what they're doing. Reebok looked at this and said, I don't want this to happen to us. They cleaned up their supply chain. Also pushing for appropriate policies. So PowerShift is this group of students, and 5,000 of them, and they went to Washington, D.C. last fall. There's going to be another group going in March. You could make this part of your classroom as well. And you just go to powervote.org, and it's there. I'm sitting in the Senate. We just got passed something called the Higher Ed Sustainability Act, and it was 2 people, Jim Elder and myself. And then we spent days calling presidents' offices and saying, would you please call your senator and your representative, would you please tell them to support the Higher Ed Sustainability Act? And voila, 150 college and university presidents did it, and it worked, and it got passed, and it's the first major piece of sustainability legislation for higher ed, and it's going to bring millions of dollars once it's appropriated, which we'll be calling you back on, to higher education to do this work. But you don't need money to do this work. Anyway, while I'm sitting there, a group of girls come up, young women, they're 18, they look just like my daughter, blonde hair, blue eyes, and you think they're going to talk about the color of their purses. And I said, how are you doing? And don't worry, my daughter does talk about the color of her purse all the time, so I get it. That's part of their life. But anyway, I said, how you doing? And they stood up tall and they said, we just changed our senator's vote. It broke me up to see their faces, their empowerment, their understanding of how they can make a difference. Over and over again, we've seen 3 students call, they changed a representative or a senator's vote, something about that magic number 3. Engaging students in democracy, giving them opportunities to practice it in your classroom. So there are lots of national trends of this going on. In the U.S. partnership, we have been convening. What we did is we just looked at the gap. You know, this piece that I hope that you'll share with your students and do with your students. Look at the gap of what's going on in our society and then take action to fill in the gaps. And be bold about it. Speak truth to power. Build coalitions of vision around vested interests so that the vested interests have to give way to society's vision for a sustainable future. You know who's been in control of energy policy in our country for decades? Guess. Oil and coal. Come on. That's it. So finally, some exciting things are happening. George Box, who's the president of the American Association of Community Colleges, has said, higher ed tends to go into Washington, D.C. and ask for money for higher ed. And we aren't at the table when energy policy is passed. And we're now realizing if we aren't there and help deal with this energy policy, there won't be any money for higher ed. So, pushing for appropriate policies too. So we have all these different sector teams, business, higher ed, K-12, communities, faith, youth, and we use this. You have a unique and important role to play in creating a sustainable future. We can't imagine doing it without you. We're having a meeting, please come, and they all came, and so now we have these active sector teams. And I did this in my spare time because I was really bored as a community college teacher. I wasn't really bored. I love the students, don't get me wrong. But I was bored with giving the same old renewable energy lectures over and over again, and people weren't listening. And I knew I had to go to the national leaders with a small group of people and get this going. So imagine what you can do in your local communities. You can join this for free. There's lots of resources that are out there that you can use. Business has lots of great resources for you on how to do sustainability because their investors are saying to them, we want to see a sustainability analysis. Is this? Yeah, because if you don't hand in a sustainability analysis with your project that you want us to fund, then we can't fund it because you're going to have environmental and social risks that make your project cost more money. So we need to see that sustainability analysis first. And our business sector team of the U.S. Partnership came to us and said, we want to issue a statement. We can't find the graduates who understand how to do sustainability analyses. And I know a bunch of you guys don't know how to do it either. That's okay, you learn alongside your students with this. This is not about having the answers first. How many of you in class have turned to your students and said, I don't know, but let's figure it out together? I think that's a sign of a great teacher when you can do that. Okay, so the business sector I've talked about, the communities, over 900 mayors have signed on to measure and reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to reduce their pollution and become more clean energy independent. There's no such thing as clean coal, by the way, just in case you weren't sure about that. Right? You're going to see a lot of money in marketing campaigns from the coal industry about that, but it just does not exist at this point in time. It doesn't look like it will for quite a while. Anyway, and then we have the faith sector and the K-12 sector and the youth. If we really do this in higher ed, put sustainability in, what's it going to look like? Sustainability ends up in the mission and the planning. Did you see that slide that they did where all of your VPs and the president were in a room and they talked about, making education relevant so that the students can contribute to better lives for themselves, for their communities, and for the world? Did you hear that part of the video? Every college says that. And then we tend not to be real rigorous in our implementation of that piece. We give them the skills to go get a job, but we don't necessarily help them build self-concepts of how they can really make a difference in the world. And I think it's important to put up examples of how they've done that. And you can do that in your classrooms, and you can do it through the culture on campus. So do we have the maintenance guys in here? Are you in here? Facilities guys, maintenance guys? All right, well, somebody go tell them that they're the stewards of the earth here, and that they really should put up some bulletin boards and online newsletters about all the things that they've been doing to reduce pollution and reduce utility bills. And then you got somebody in a math class, you want to give an extra credit assignment where they can just calculate the tons of pollutants that have been saved and the dollars saved per year, and then you can put it up. Why don't you put it up on the bathroom stalls? Do you have things on the bathroom stalls now? Do you have things on the bathroom stalls? No? That's prime real estate. Everybody reads what's in there. You're laughing, but it's true. Put things, and make it the stories of how students have made a difference. Did you know that Joe Smith suggested that we use double-sided printing? And because of that, we have conserved X amount of trees and X amount of tons of pollutants and X amount of dollars so that they can see that they can make a difference. So a course in curricula, course in purchasing, in your operations, in your building, in your student life, that's where the culture comes alive on campus. And I have 3 teenagers, and 2 of them are in college, and while I've done my share, believe me, they don't perfectly get how to live sustainably yet. And so, if you can help them along with giving them more opportunities on campus, because these are their lifelong habits that they're establishing. And then professional development. Also, legislation I've mentioned, and public awareness. We are more closely tied to our communities. You should see University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. I swear that they don't get, I don't know why they don't get nosebleeds there with how high up their noses are about how we're out changing the world, we're not really here for the community. It's really disgusting. And a lot of 4 years do that. It's really us. We're the ones that are integrated in with the communities. Just internationally a taste, in Sweden it's a law. All undergraduates have to be knowledgeable about our sustainability challenges and engaged in the solutions. And I don't have time for the rest, but there's a lot of exciting things going on internationally. You all belong to ASHE. So you're only going to do 2 things out of today's talk. Go to myfootprint.org and create a learning activity around it in your class, because it's fine if they get it in multiple classes. They need to for it to start to sink in. And secondly, go to AASHE.org, AASHE.org, and you have already paid for a membership. It's got endless resources, free bulletins that you can get, researchable digests. It's just wonderful. And it's for everybody. It's for the administrative assistants, it's for the secretaries, it's for the purchasing people, it's for student life, it's for the faculty, there's resources for everybody. So 17 higher ed associations are now engaged in national initiatives for a sustainable future, and I'm not going to list them all except to tell you that they cover all of the presidents in the country, college and university presidents. They include people who put on conferences, workforce development, bookstores, trustees, planners, facilities. So your professional organizations are engaged in this. Go look for their sustainability resources. And if you want a bunch of links that you don't want to go searching through this, just put on hes.net/sustainablefuture and ASHE. Those will both give you lots and lots of wonderful links, and just Google around, with it. Once you get there, you'll have a lot of fun. Over 560 college presidents have signed on to the President's Climate Commitment. This is a commitment to measure and reduce greenhouse gas emissions with the eventual goal of getting off of fossil fuels. You have not signed it yet here at this institution, but you might want to consider doing it, Mr. President, because it gives you access to $2 billion of funding from energy service companies to come in and do conservation and renewables on your campus. And sounds like you may be running out of renovation money from the state, so this might be a good source for you. And then there's also, you like that idea? There's also a commitment when he signs that students will be educated here about how to engage in solutions to our sustainability challenges. But you were going to do that anyway, right? So it's easy to sign the commitment with that. Lots of resources for you. Oh, there is this thing called STARS. It's kind of like a report card that you can do, and I think you guys are looking at using that to see how you're doing on sustainability in all the different areas of the institution. Now, we also went to the academic disciplinary associations, and we got the emails and the phone numbers of all the executive directors, and then we called them all, and we said, you each have a unique, I did this, by the way, with one intern from Michigan State University, and about 3 people who were helping just a few hours a week. It's amazing what you can get done when you turn your focus to really working on real-world solutions. So we called them and we said, you have a unique and important contribution to make. We can't imagine doing this without you and your discipline. Please come to a meeting. We have now been meeting for 3 years. They're driving me crazy because they're so active with things that now I've had to bring in other people to co-facilitate and to run the work groups. And it's all of these associations, I didn't write out the whole titles because there are too many words, and more. Okay, we get them calling us now and asking to join. And they are working on infusing sustainability into curricula, into promotion and tenure requirements, into accreditation criteria, into informing legislation, informing the public awareness campaigns, and cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary approaches. They have models up there. Let's say that you just don't want to change what you're doing in your classroom. You just got it done and you don't have one more minute to talk about anything else. I question that assumption. But anyway, let's say that that's how you are in your attitude towards sustainability. You could do an assignment, and there's a model there. Put them into small interdisciplinary groups. Let your students envision a positive scenario for the future. Let them tell the story. Create a story of how we got from today to this positive future. We are surrounded by negative visions of the future. It's really important that students get some positive visions. Then they have to use discipline concepts to explain how we got from today to this positive future society, and they have to explain the concepts to each other. There's applied learning. That's when they really own that concept in economics, or in psychology, or in English, or in political science. We've used all of those disciplines and more. Then they present their scenarios, and you know what we find? Every college I know has this emphasis on diversity. I hope you weren't trying to tape this. I know I'm making a very messy tape for you. I'm sorry. Diversity, diversity, diversity. I love diversity too. We have to embrace it. But also there's importance to focus on the commonality across all different types of people. So how about, and a lot of diversity groups have done this, extending your diversity piece to also look at the commonality of human struggles and desires and hopes. Because what we found is that when those scenarios were presented, they were very similar across all groups. Then the students went one step farther and they invited into the campus
the organizations that are helping to create a sustainable future, and they set up booths all over campus, and the students sent out the press releases so they could put on their resume that they created a positive futures fair. And then they talked about career and volunteer opportunities. And students went, whoa, I didn't find this in the Career Center. This is amazing. I could actually do a career in this, and it was transformational. So that's something that you might want to consider doing. Those professors who don't want to change what they're doing in the classroom, or those who do and want to include this as part of the assignment. So we're working on a lot with Dan's. I also want your IT people, are they here, to consider setting up a website. I just came from Corning Community College. You know they have a service learning program where any course can add on 1 credit hour, which is a service learning credit hour. And the students then engage in real-world problem-solving for sustainability and relating it to the course that they're taking. And Play a Greater Part is a website that the Society of College and University Planners and the U.S. Partnership put together. Imagine having your students go out to your mayor's offices, your nonprofits, your small businesses, and saying, and even your own purchasing office, your own facilities office, and saying, if you had more staff so you could work on sustainability, what would you like to do? Writing up those projects and posting them on a website. And then it's an online matchmaking system where students, faculty, and pro bono professionals can come onto the website and pick off sustainability projects they want to work on. Make your service learning opportunities come alive. Make your assignments come alive. What percentage of our assignments just get graded and handed back and don't do anything to make the world a better place? Take a guess. What percentage of our assignments? Come on, say it out loud. 95%. So what we're teaching them is jump through our hoops, do our assignments, get the grades, and you will be an educated person. I'm not sure we're teaching them how to be effective doers. So maybe we could look at shifting more and more of our assignments. My students go out and do energy audits in the community. They've done energy audits on senior citizen centers, on high schools, on jails. They did one on the jail, that was interesting. So you could look at doing that too. All right, here's what I'd like you to do. You all have a card. I'd like you to take the card, and I want you to think about, for those, I'm going to speak to the staff first and then the faculty. Okay, so non-faculty staff, I want you to think about 3 things that you could do in your daily behaviors at the college or in policy setting at the college that would help create a more sustainable institution. Put your name on it and list the 3 things that you could do. And now, you know, you got an easy one, which is stop drinking bottled water. But try and think of 3 things you could do to create a more sustainable, and I don't care if it's in your job area or not. I talked to your president last night, and Mr. President said to me that he is empowering all of you to start sustainability projects. They've done this at other colleges, it's worked really well. And as long as it doesn't conflict with your regular job or it enhances your regular job, either one, that you can go ahead and do this. Those of you who are faculty, I want you to think of a concept you teach in your course. You got to teach it anyways, and now you can teach sustainability while you're teaching it. Let me give you an example. Psychology instructors, operant conditioning. You got to teach about rewards and punishments and how it affects behavior. Well, use an example about energy conservation behavior. How we need to change our behaviors of how we consume energy to teach operant conditioning. There you go. You can't use that one. So faculty, I want you to write down a learning activity. Put your name on it, and please write so we can read it. Put your name on it and write down your learning activity. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. Okay, great.
Hi, this is Tommy Hensel. I'm the director here at the FPAC. These are
And products could get student-approved label, socially and environmentally responsible. We need that label designed. Make that a project. We need the criteria developed. Make that a project. There are nonprofits in your area that are looking at doing sustainability projects. They need grants written. Make that a writing assignment. Lots and lots of things that you can do. Here's all the places where you can institutionalize sustainability into your college. And it is not a complete list. but when students come for orientation, it would be really nice if they know something about the commitment that's going on here. Put it into the strategic plan. Put it into that gen ed core. And it already is in a way. You've got global responsibility in there, so this will help make that come alive. But also it's got to be throughout the curricula. It just can't be in the core gen ed courses. You know, there's some colleges where they're putting an S in the schedule of classes next to every section of a course where there's a commitment to teach sustainability. And then they put a description in the beginning of the schedule of classes so students know that they can pick those. So we have so many resources for you to help you move forward. We have lists of learning outcomes. We just finished a paper comparing learning outcomes around the world and showing how common they are. Don't worry about making mistakes on this. We're all going to make mistakes in creating a sustainable future. Turn the campus into a living lab. I don't have time to talk about the benefits of green design, but this is a fairly self-explanatory part of the presentation, and you can look at that when it's posted for you. And green buildings don't have to cost more money. You're picking out furniture. Why don't you go after green furniture if you can? I know sometimes some types can be a little more expensive. Go to them and ask for volume pricing. They want higher volume? Do what Los Angeles Community College did with their solar collectors. They opened up the purchasing agreement to people in the community as well, so that the community could get the advantage of the volume pricing of the collectors. Maybe you could do that around the furniture. And please, please, please engage your your nationally and locally elected representatives. Invite them to campus to have discussions on this. Utilize the media to tell your story in the future, and let your enthusiasm show it's contagious. Thank you very much.
That's the first gift.
And of course, I forgot one little thing. You want to talk about retention, your students' food costs, their gas costs, that's why you have to engage in sustainability, because otherwise it's going to hit you in your pocketbook, because you're going to see reduced enrollment. But secondly, those AQUIP projects, let's make them around sustainability. Thank you.
Before you go, and as we close down the morning session, I want to thank Dr. Rowe for being here this morning, and thank her for her comments. I want to thank Ray again for the outstanding video. I want to thank the staff for putting all of the pieces together this morning for the in-service. And I want to thank you, the faculty and staff, for your commitment to students. And lastly, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Have a good day, and remember, faculty are to return at 11:30.